All right, welcome back. Today your student instructions stay the same. You're going to need paper and pencil to complete the assignment. Be sure to take notes to help you on an independent practice. Show your work, and during the notes and guided practice, you may pause and rewind as needed. Once completed with the notes and guided practice, complete and submit the independent practice. Do not be afraid to contact me for help. So the last 2 days, we've been talking about equations. Well, today we're going to talk about inequalities. So I just want to review a couple things, inequalities, the symbols. An equation uses an equal sign to show that both sides are balanced. An inequality shows that both sides are not equal. So, with an inequality, both sides are not necessarily equal. The greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. And we have to remember which symbol is which. So, I'm going to fill in these boxes, and you guys can pause the video or rewind it whenever you need to come back to it and look at it. Greater than is going to point this way. Greater than or equal to has the line below it. Less than or equal to, and then not equal to is going to be an equal sign, but it's going to have a line through it. Okay, so those are the symbols we're going to work with for inequalities. And then we're going to go ahead and start solving. So, solving two-step inequalities. Two-step inequalities follow the same rules for isolating the variable. Think of it as undoing or opposite. Okay, undo addition or subtraction with the inverse operation. So again, the same way we solved an equation, we're going to solve an inequality. Undo multiplication or division with the inverse operation. When you multiply or divide, this is the tricky part, by a negative, I'm put it in all caps. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality sign is flipped. We have to flip the symbol. We're still going to isolate the variable. And then at the end, we're going to check our inequality sign. So we're going to make sure our inequality symbol is correct. All right, let's start solving. The first one, we have 5x plus 9 is less than 17. So again, we're going to go ahead, we're going to solve the same way. Isolate the variable, so leave the variable alone. We have plus 9. The inverse of addition is subtraction. So if I subtract on both sides, 9 minus 9 is 0. So I cross it out. 17 minus 9 is 8. So I have 5x is less than 8. The inverse of multiply is divide. So I have 8 divided by 5. So I'm going to do this over here. 5 goes into 8 one time. 5 goes into 36. So I get x is less than 1.6. Now, if I look at my division, did I divide by a negative? No. So my symbol, my inequality symbol stays the same. It stays less than. Okay. Now, something I forgot to do again, when I solve equations, I like to put my inverse operations here. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. Inverse of subtraction is addition. Inverse of multiply is divide. And inverse of divide is multiply. Okay, so now let's solve the next one. Negative 2x minus 3 is greater than 13. So if I leave the variable alone, I need to move my minus 3. Inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add 3, and I have negative 2x is greater than 16. The inverse of multiply is divide. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. Now, this time, if I look, I divided by negative 2. Well, if I divide by a negative, my symbol has to flip. So instead of greater than, it's now less than. Okay? Let's try a few more. 10 plus 3k is less than or equal to 22. So I'm going to leave my variable alone, which is the k. Opposite of plus 10, I'm going to subtract 10. I'm left with 3k is less than or equal to 12. And now the inverse of multiply is divide. And I'm left with k is less than or equal to 4. Now I forgot to check myself, but I did not divide by a negative, so my symbol stays the same. It stays less than. All right, my next problem. 19 is greater than negative 4p minus 5. So I'm going to leave my the p alone. I'm going to first get rid of my 5 or undo my 5. So the inverse of subtraction is addition. What I do to one side, I do to the other. 19 plus 5 is 24. And I have negative 4p. Well, I'm going to divide by negative 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6. A positive and a negative is a negative. So now if I look, did I divide by a negative? Yes. So my symbol, instead of greater than, needs to become less than. Now, because we're so used to having the letter on the other side, if I switch and I switch p and negative 6, if I switch those two, I also have to switch my symbol. Okay, so either one of these answers is correct. Something I also could have written at the top of my paper, now that I think about it, is your way to remember multiplying and dividing. So remember, a negative and a positive is a negative. Negative and a negative is a positive. Okay. All right. Last one. 1/2 r plus 3 is less than 6. So the first thing I want to undo is my plus 3. The inverse of addition is subtraction. So 6 minus 3 is 3. And I still have 1/2 r. So with my 1/2, I know lots of us don't like working with fractions. So I'm going to show you another way to solve it if you want to. First, I'll start off with my fraction though. So to undo a fraction, I want to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 2 over 1, which means I'm left with r. And if I multiply 3 by 2 over 1, 3 times 2 is 6. And then I'm left with 6 over 1, which is just 6. Did I multiply by a negative? No. So my symbol stays R is less than 6. Okay, so I'm going to show you one more way to do that one. And if you don't like working with fractions, we can change our 1/2 to a decimal. So 1/2 R plus 3 is less than 6. So instead of 1/2, I'm going to use 0.5 because 1/2 is 0.5. And I'm going to solve the same way. I'm going to subtract 3, and I'm left with 0.5 R is less than 3. And now I'm going to divide by 0.5. So 3 divided by 0.5, I got to move my decimal, and I get 6. Did I divide by negative? No. So my symbol stays the same. Okay? And that's it. So make sure you complete your independent practice and let me know if you have questions.